Just
No
get
problem.
into it. We'll dive straight into it. What is the atmosphere like? What's the general feeling? What's happening at this time?
Right now there's a general feeling of worry and concern, especially for persons living in the north of the island. Um, and it is one of those surreal kind of atmosphere. It's almost like the stuff that you see on TV. So earlier on, when we had the first explosion, it depended on where you were on the island, you would have seen the clouds and the plumes of smoke. For the second explosion, which by the way, we had a second explosion around minutes to 3 this afternoon. For that explosion, it didn't matter where you were on island. It was that high. It was about more than 20 kilometers up in the air. There was an explosion of volcanic fragments, ash, dust, and there have been reports of small stones. So persons are kind of being advised to stay indoors if you're close to the volcano. So it has, and since that second explosion, we've had several other explosions after that consecutively, and they're equally violent. So the feeling is a very grim feeling, but in the shelters, the atmosphere in some shelters pretty upbeat, and in some other shelters it's pretty sad because persons don't know when they will be able to go back to their homes, and what will be left of their homes will definitely be covered in ash, and it wouldn't be inhabitable for a bit, for like maybe a few days or up to some weeks.
Do you know specifically of anyone who has been evacuated, who has left the island? I've seen images of people with bags in hands, bags on their backs. I mean, it's like putting your home into bags and just moving on with life. What has that been like for you, that experience?
It is. And I think one of the challenges that the disaster preparedness organization have been having is that it doesn't matter how much you tell people that you need to be prepared. Still caught persons in a position where they were able to just grab maybe one knapsack, and they had to head to a shelter. So it's a situation where persons are now in the schools or the emergency shelters, and they're in positions where simple things like a container to have to receive food or cutlery or pampers or like wipes, simple things that they didn't think ahead to pack. Those are the things that are creating some humanitarian issues at the moment. As it relates to evacuation off the island, I'm not in a position to say if persons have been leaving the island of St. Vincent, but for sure, all the persons who reside in the northern or in the red zone of St. Vincent, they have been evacuated or are being evacuated to the southern side of the island. And persons are taking them into their homes and into shelters. And so far, there are maybe one or two cruise ships on the shoreline, and they've been accepting persons too. And I'm not sure how they're facilitating taking them to other islands. So I'm not in a position to say if Vincentians have been leaving the country to go to other islands. I'm
Of
not
course,
sure.
it's a natural disaster, even during a particularly difficult time with COVID-19 in the mix. How do you think that is
Yes.
being handled? I mean, people in shelters and you still have the social distance. What's taking place?
It's sort of like a two-in-one problem, and it's a predicament that no government wants to handle at this point in time. But currently, the CMO, she has came forward and said that persons who are entering the shelters, they have set up um, rapid test stations. So once you enter in a shelter, you would be tested, not necessarily PCR, but the rapid antigen test. So, and if it shows that you are or have been exposed to corona, you will be placed in a separate isolation center. And that's how we've been dealing with it. I think they've been encouraging persons to be vaccinated, but it's not mandatory. There have been some rumors that if you don't get vaccinated, you won't be allowed into shelters, but I don't think that is true. It's just a case where it would be obviously better if persons are vaccinated, but at this point in time, it's mandatory, and the government, they are testing persons as they enter the shelter.
And if you can just in a nutshell describe for me what you are currently seeing, hearing, sense, sights, what is that like right now?
So to give you and to put things in context, I am now located in the most southern part of the island, which is the greenest part of the zones. I'm in the safest part. And from where I stood at some parts this morning, I was still able to hear the rumbles of the volcano. And differently, depending on the wind direction, you were able to get the effects of the sulfur, the dust. It affected your breathing, your eyes, your nose, and we are in the green zone. So if you're living in the northern side of the island, it is completely gray. You persons have been using flashlights in the daytime to see a few feet ahead of them. That is how gray, that is how ash filled. The streets are filled with ash. Stones are falling, not big stones, but it is a grim movie-like situation if you're residing close to the volcano. It's very scary. It's great. It's dark. There is no sunshine.
And before we go, I'd just like if you have any words for your fellow citizens and even the authorities at this time, is there anything you'd like to say?
For the authorities, I'd like to say that we have been visiting the shelters, myself and some of the other artists. There are some simple oversights that, and I mean, we could never really prepare fully for a situation like this. But for persons who want to help, there are ways to help. And there are basic things like wipes and diapers and beds and shelters and not shelters and blankets and things like a fan. It is a simple thing like a fan can go a long way. A simple thing like a charger. And so if you're looking to help the situation, whether you're from a neighboring island, you can contact Nemo, you can direct message me, Skinny Fabulous, and I will facilitate whatever donations you want to contribute to the island. I will get them to the right authorities to make it happen. But in as far as the authorities are concerned, they have been doing a pretty okay job. It's just that there are certain shelters that it's not equal across the board. Some shelters have, some shelters don't have. So we are just trying as citizens to fill that gap.
Well, I know your hands are filled and know you're very busy. I continue to wish you all the best and we will continue to keep in touch, but have a wonderful afternoon. And again, all the best to you.